Hey, Mr. Pond Boss, tell me what to do to make all my Lunker Lake dreams come true.
Hello, everybody. Bob Lusk, the Pond Boss, coming at you live with a crusty throat. So I'm not going to do a lot of talking. We're hanging out today at Woody's Roadhouse Lodge, Lake Allen, Henry, Texas. Hey, guys, won't y'all bring a bottle of water over here in a minute? Hanging out with my good friend Mark McDonald, John Hand, and tonight you're going to get to meet some pretty cool people. Glad to have guests. We have got Mr. Jared Poole, the Hill Country Hammer. We're going to talk about fishing. Now, of course, we were going to take your questions. We're going to do that sort of thing. And now, you guys that watch this show all the time, you know the drill. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine in the comments section. Click like, share this to your timeline. You were eligible for a drawing thank you very much, for a Pond Boss hat. There it is right there. And the Pond Boss mug. You're going to love this because all these guys know what I'm going to say next.
What is it?
The Pond Boss mug knows how to keep hot things hot and cold things cold. And we don't know how it knows, but it knows. So looks like we got about 30 people joining us so far. That's cool. And I like to greet folks when I'm doing this. So it's kind of hard to do it on my phone. So we're going to blow it up right here on my, where'd it go? There it is. Then we're going to carry on a little conversation. That way I can see the comments. Looky there. Jack and Honey will get that voice right. Robbie, I had some, but it kind of disappeared. I don't know where it went. Brody Campbell, John Funk checking in from mid-Michigan. We have people from all over the nation.
Awesome.
Parker Fleming, Kim Moore checking in. She's checking in. Billy Bates, see, I do sound rough. I feel fine. But here's the deal. I hang out with midgets. People call them grandkids. No.
Not me.
3-year-old people carry along stuff that you get, and I don't know how you get it. So then you just get it. Mike Cottrell checking in from Palo Pinto County, Texas. Todd Austin. Jason Nepstad, North Carolina. We got folks from all over the place here tonight. Jared, Tony Lawrence, Billy Bates, Mike McPherson, Fred Bingaman checking in from Illinois. Chuck Brinkman, Missouri. Jeremy Duckworth, Troy Todd, Brody Campbell, Minnesota. Good deal. You guys, there's Vito checking in from Whitesboro. So I'm going to give my throat a rest. I want you guys to get to know Jared Poole. Now, Jared, you call yourself the Hill Country Hammer. He's a professional fishing guide. And what's your motto? You kind of chase the...
Right now we're chasing the bite. We do it every spring. We chase the spawn on several different lakes. We started on Choke Canyon this year. We went back to our home lake, which is Lake LBJ. And now, after LBJ, we went to Lake Ivy. And now we're here at Lake Allen Henry. We're going to be here till mid-May, possibly June. The fish, it's a later spawn up here north.
So you guys are chasing the biggest fish you can catch.
Yes, it's our trophy trips. We're after putting clients on one giant.
So you're bringing, what your goal is if you can bring somebody in and they pay you and you take them out, and if they catch one bad, now what's a trophy giant?
We consider a trophy anything over 8 pounds. That's just a giant bass anywhere you go.
Oh yeah, yep. Katie Baca, fishing like a cat. You ought to check her out. She's pretty stellar into this stuff too. She loves to fish. So of course, almost everybody that watches this show are anglers, but even more than that, they have private waters. They have a pond or a lake that they manage. So one thing I was hoping we could talk about is to give folks a few tips on how to chase some of those bigger fish. If they got a 10 or 12 acre lake or a 3 acre pond, they know they got some big fish in it, and you're trying to fish the spawn, which is going on right now in a lot of places. What do?
Well, you want to look for the beds right now. They're going to be up on the beds. The way we do it is we ride around. We've got platforms in our boat, the light.
So you can get up high so you can look down at sight.
So you can look down on them. You don't have to be as close to spook them, but you want to look for beds. Beds can look like anything. Some bass, they'll spawn at the base of trees. They'll fan off the bottom to get to the gravel. They don't like to spawn in mud. They want something the eggs are going to cling to.
Exactly. That's right. Yep.
So you ride around and you just look for that and look for their beds, or look for what we call a football underwater swimming.
Okay. So when you see that football, you know that's the female.
Yes, sir.
That's close to the bed.
Yes, sir.
All right. And so now, while you're out there looking, and pondmeisters, I call them pondmeisters, you guys know when your bass are spawning. You can see the beds. So once you see the beds, then you know that there's going to be a female in proximity, but
Yes.
the male guards the bed.
Yes, the male guards the bed.
So when you're looking at those fish, and you know that there's got to be a female or two out there somewhere, and you know the male's on the bed, how do you attack that?
Basically, I like to sit there. A lot of the anglers, the mistake they make when they're trying to catch them, I see, is they immediately just start pitching at the bed. I like to hover back and watch and basically study the fish before I even touch a rod. I'm studying. I'm looking at their temperament. I'm looking at how cautious they are, you know, towards the activity around them, or if they're just real protective of the bed, and we call it locked, if they're locked on the bed.
So if the male is locked on the bed, then what does that mean?
That means he's been there. He's established that as his territory. That's where he's gonna.
So sometimes you'll see a male that's kind of away from the bed, and he's not locked on. What does that mean? He's staged, or what does that mean to you?
It can mean several different things. I mean, every fish is different. I mean, they all have their own, what I'd say, personality. I mean, he could be a timid fish. He knows you're there, or he could. I mean, I've seen the males have a bed side by side. He could have another location right there next to it.
Oh, so he might be tending two beds.
Yes, sir.
Well, greedy little booger.
Yes, sir.
And the males are always how big?
Your average male on public waters, you know, your average male is 12 to 16 inches.
Okay. All right. And then will he spawn with what you're saying, will he spawn with more than one big female?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's the experience I've got too. So what'll happen is, so now you hover back and you're just studying the behavior.
Yes.
And you're looking for that big football that might be in 5 feet of water.
Yes, sir.
While this bed is in how deep of water?
It depends on the lake. Normally, water clarity has a lot to do with it. The clearer the water, the deeper they'll spawn. The sun penetrates it further. The water gets a little deeper.
Y'all remember that. That's real important.
The dirtier the water, the more shallow they'll be.
That's right. That's right. I see that in private waters all the time. There's Jeremy Duckworth checking in, Phil Lincoln, Chris Arthur, Jeff Cox. Do I need to worry about red-eared turtles in my pond as far as affecting my fish? No, that won't bug you at all. Those turtles, now what they will do is they'll eat your fish food. You know, so if you've got a few red-ear sliders, consider that normal. Let's see here. Brody Campbell going to create a 1 to 2 acre pond. We'd love to help you with that, Brody. Just drop us a note and we'll help you with it. Dang, Bob, you've been out hooting and hollering. Yeah, you know what? We went to lake. I've never heard of this lake until this week. J.B. Thomas. It's kind of a muddy lake, but it's loaded with fish. And we're 2 days post front. So the water temperature, there's another angler that said last week the temperature of that lake was 70 and it was 57 degrees today. Well, we didn't catch any fish.
No.
So let's take that angle. So when you have to be studying the temperature of the water.
Yes, 100%.
Tell us about that.
These fish, like I said, the water clarity determines all that. Dirtier water, it'll hold the temperature better. It doesn't cool off as fast, and it heats up a little quicker.
That's right.
So your prime water temp for the fish to move up and get on these beds, for the male to start making the bed, is roughly 60 degrees. Now, when they're locked, they're hot, that water temp 64, 65 degrees, they're mad, they're angry, they're trying to do their thing. The female's trying to get in there and get it over with.
Mm-hmm. So she wants to come in, deposit her eggs, and then go eat.
She'll go eat. Yeah, she'll come in. A lot of people think a female will move in, dump her eggs, spawn, she's done, which that's false. The female, she'll move in, She could be on that same bed 12, 24, 36 hours and move off, but she's not done. We see it all the time, the same fish bumping beds. I mean, they'll move up to this bed, dump a little, the male fertilizes, she'll back off, go feed, and she'll come back up, and male will put her on the bed. The male goes and gets the female, basically is how it
That's
works.
right.
He will chase her up onto the bed. He claims her.
That's right.
It's like a caveman almost.
Yeah, and what's funny is she may weigh 12 pounds, he weighs 1.25 pounds.
Yeah, easy. Or we 10 inches.
Yeah, which is crazy. Now, I think one of the lingering questions that we want to, let's go ahead and deal with this. When you see that fish and that female and you start to target her and you're watching her, take us through the kind of your steps as to when you catch that fish, or what do you got to do to make her bite a hook?
Basically, if the female's around the bed, I'm gonna pay more attention to the male. I want to see his attitude because he's the one that will get her fired up. The biggest mistake that we see anglers making is they catch the male and they'll put him in the live well. You never want to catch the male. You want to let him, he'll pick that bait up, let him carry it off. He's not trying to eat it. Just apply pressure, he'll spit the bait. May have to do that 10 or 15 times and she'll get sick of it.
Oh, because you're messing with her guy.
You're messing with the bed.
She's okay.
You know, and we've even watched the male. He'll swim out with your bait and he'll spit it in her face, and she sucks it in. The 14-pounder I caught last year, that was exactly what happened. Messed with the male. Eventually, she wasn't even on the bed. She was 5 foot off the bed. He swam the bait over and spit it in her face. She sucked it in. She got caught.
The what pounder?
14 pounds.
14, as in
13 ounces.
14 pounds, 13 ounces. That's amazing. Now you've caught, I see Wayne and Josie are watching, this is their Wednesday night, is their date night.
Oh, man.
To watch this show. What's up with that?
I don't know.
We love us some Wayne and Josie. There's Ron Ardwan checking in from Lake Charles, Louisiana. He's got a pond management company down there. So thanks for tolerating my voice. They're writing about it all over here. So the next thing that's really interesting to me is one thing I'm impressed with, a number of things, but one big thing is you're interested in taking care of that fish.
Yes.
So when you catch that female, what do you do?
It depends if it's normally, if it's a trophy fish, of course, that 8 to 13 pound range. We'll immediately put her in the live well because we're going to get weights, we're going to get measurements, but we turn on both pumps in the live well, the recirc and the pump in, so she's just sitting there, and our oxygenator, so we've got the live well running full blast.
Okay, and then what do you do? You take the pictures in? Do you hang on to the
fish?
fish?
No, we'll let her sit in that live well. She's stressed out. I mean, she just fought. I mean,
so you're letting her calm down, and get fresh oxygen, and just
fresh water.
Rejuvenate a little bit. Okay, yes. Okay, all right. And then how long does that take?
It just depends on if we can get our heart rates under control, how big she was.
Get your heart rates under control?
We're the clients. But normally we'll 5-10 minutes. We don't want them in the boat very long at all.
But you're sitting right there when you catch that fish.
Yes, we're sitting right there. We're still got the power poles down. We're not moving. We're just getting everything, getting the measuring sticks out, getting the scales out, getting everything prepped. So when we pull her out, we can weigh her, get our client pictures, our personal pictures, whatever it is, and then we measure. We try to keep her from laying on the floor so we don't take off their protective slime coating. I mean, we try to do everything possible, and then we'll put her back in the box one more time just to get her fresh. Get her from holding her up and all that stuff.
Okay, so your oxygenator, what is that? Does that create oxygen?
Yes, it's these newer boats we run. They've got the real fine oxygen
micro bubbles.
Yes,
okay,
micro bubbles that go in there.
So what you're doing is you're giving her a chance to regenerate some oxygen through her gills, get her circulatory system back up, make sure she's got plenty of good, clean, healthy air, oxygen, and then you release the fish.
Then we do a release video. Let her go right on the spot, right there in front of the bed, and chances are 99% of the time she's not going back to that bed. She's stressed out. She's going to move out.
But she's going to come back and spawn later.
She's going to come back and spawn.
Because she's got eggs.
She's got eggs. She's going to come back and spawn.
Now, here's something really interesting that's on the biology side. Is when somebody catches a big fish like that, or you got a double-digit fish growing in your pond, all their eggs don't mature at one time. So the biggest bass, the biggest females tend to dominate the nesting early on, but they don't lay all their eggs because all their eggs aren't mature. So what'll happen is she will lay the eggs that are mature, that are vasculated, and the male guards those eggs, and he's the one that actually hatches the eggs. And then she'll move out, go feed, and then more of her eggs and her ovaries will mature. And then on the next phase of the full moon, she'll spawn again.
Yes, sir.
Do you see it that way when you're fishing?
I've seen the same fish up to 2 and 3 times,
Spawning 2 or 3 times,
on different beds.
Oh, okay. So you see that same fish going from here and may go 50 feet over there.
50 feet, 100 yards. I mean, they'll move.
And you can tell the fish when you see it.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. It's kind of like deer. I mean, once these guys see that animal and they see it again, they know what it is. They know which one it is. Chad Roberts says, what happens to the hatch, if anything, when an abnormal cold snap happens in the middle or the end of a spawn? Well, it depends on the stage of the hatch, Chad. If the eggs haven't hatched into fry yet, then they slow down and they hatch later. So they're going to hatch based on the temperature of the water. Now, if the fry have hatched and they're little sack fry, they're going to lay in the bottom of the nest and slowly absorb the yolk of what was their egg. And then as they do that, then they begin to swim up. Then they'll wait. It just slows it down. It doesn't kill the fish. It doesn't mess them up. It just slows the process down. And then when the water temperature comes right back up, then they get back into that normal pattern of development. And as the fry develop, then they'll rise off the bed, and then the male will herd them in a cluster, in a little school. And he'll push them over to the side, to the shore, to where it's safe as he can get, and then they begin to feed. Because once they absorb the yolk of their egg, they have no body fat. So those little bitty bass that are about that long have got to eat. So that's when they start feeding on insects. They feed on little bitty whatever fits in their mouth. I mean, think about a little bass that's 1/4 of an inch long. Its mouth is twice as big as the head of a pin. So it's feeding on Daphnia. It's feeding on amoebas. It's feeding on whatever it can glean from the water and pluck off of plants and catch, mostly catch. Now, once that little bass gets to be about 1/2 an inch long, enough of them have differentiated themselves by being aggressive that they turn around and start eating each other. Now, once they come up and they're migrating along the shore in a cluster, that cluster or that school only stays intact for maybe a week, and their numbers drop logarithmically because now everything else is eating those bass. Bluegill will eat them, crappie, other bass. Even the daddy will eat some of them if he gets the chance. Because once he herds those fish off to the shore and leaves them, he can't identify them as his. He has no affection. He's a predator. So they eat each other like that. So there's a long answer for that one. Here we go. Let me see what else we got here. Then we'll carry on some more conversation here. Let me look down here. I like to kind of stay ahead of these questions if we can. Taking temps in the mid-20s, 4 inches of snow, abnormal. If your bass have spawned, Chad, and your temperatures are mid-20s, and you got 4 inches of snow abnormal, I don't know that that's going to kill the fish, but I tell you what it will do. It will weaken them to the point to where their survival rates will be lower. That's the bad news. The good news is those bass are going to spawn again when the temperature gets right. So you'll have a brand new hatch coming in right behind that one. Mark Dyer, with a mucky bottom, what depth would be optimal to place artificial beds to aid the bass spawn? Should underwater habitat be very close for the fry, or does that provide cover for egg-eating fish, causing the nearby habitat to be a negative? You want to tackle that one? So where he's going is, you said, the bass like to get down to the gravel. They like to have a firm substrate. So if a guy has a pond and he doesn't have firm substrate, can he take like a kid's swimming pool, put gravel in it, and set it in the muck, and will bass use that?
I mean they would, but just even a simple boulder. A lot of people see the bed as being a 2-foot circle. Some are, but it's usually that happy spot's about yay big.
Yep, the bed could be I've seen beds 12 inches in diameter, but every bed that I've seen with bass, when you look down in the very basin of that bed in the bottom, it's about that big around because that's where that cluster of eggs sits, and that's where he guards them. Now about your, I do believe, I do know that you got to have some kind of habitat fairly close to that nest for these fry to be able to go hide, or they're going to get eaten really quick.
Brush piles.
Brush piles, bushy pondweed, American pondweed, native plants. I love native plants. Now, Jason Nepstad's from North Carolina. He's an avid angler. He's asking, have you turned any fish into the Sherlunker program?
I have not personally, no. We had a client, Leroy Boss was his name. I think it was 2 weeks ago out of Lake Ivy. He caught a 13-pound, 3-ounce bass, and we left it to his discretion, and he decided to just release it. After talking with you and seeing exactly what the Sherlunker program does, with all our 8+s, we're probably going to start submitting a lot of them. But no, I haven't personally.
And plus, that Sherlunker program only goes from, I think, what is it?
It ends April 1st.
Yeah, it ends at the end of April, end of March. So even if you wanted to turn that one in last week, you couldn't do it.
No.
Although it would have qualified. Okay, let's see. Mike McPherson, my largemouth bass will be delivered Monday, 5 to 7 inch range. Will they spawn this year or next? They won't spawn this year. But here's what will happen. As long as you've set the table and they've got plenty to eat, the best of those 5 to 7 inchers, by this time next year will be 12 to 14 inchers. Those will spawn next year. Now, some of those won't grow a lot. Some of them will. Those bigger ones will spawn next year. Katie says, in the kayak fishing world, it's all about CPR, catch, photo, and release. You know what? And that's absolutely true. I totally believe in that. I like what these guys are doing, though, because when you have these big fish that, are 8 pounds plus, I like the idea of rejuvenating their oxygen levels, especially in lake water. But I'm a big fan of catch, photo, release. But I like the fact that you're putting pure oxygen to them. That will help them revive even more quickly. So I like that idea. And if you've got that capability, do it. If you don't, Katie, right on. Catch, photo, and release. Harrison Davis checking in from Georgia. So now, if you were going to give folks more tips about, and we're past the spawn, and we're not quite into the summer patterns yet, and they want to try to catch a big fish, would you target bigger fish differently than you would just the run-of-the-mill 2 to 4 pound bass?
Yes, I would.
Okay, what would you do?
That post-spawn, these fish, they've been on the beds. I mean, they're hungry. They're going to come off hungry. We like to throw bigger swim baits, bigger frogs, just a more. Go ahead.
No, I'm hearing what you're saying. You're throwing bigger frogs.
Just a bigger bait, bigger profile.
Are you fishing on the bottom?
Post spawn, we like to. I mean, you want a reaction bait. You want something moving. Is what we do.
So something moving, making noise.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So you like frogs.
Big swim baits. I mean, we even throw the 10-inch worm. That is a bottom bait, Texas rig 10-inch worm. I mean, we're trying to give them that meal they want.
So here's the point: big fish eat big meals. Big fish eat big meals. I had I'll never forget. I had a shocked up about a 7-pound female, which all 7-pounders are females, in a Louisiana lake a few years ago, and man, her stomach was just full. And we put her in the live well and got ready to start to weigh and measure all these fish. And I looked in the live well to pick her up, and I recoiled.
Snake.
Yeah, she had regurgitated about an 18-inch long cottonmouth water moccasin that was dead in there. And that's not the only fish I've ever shocked up that had a snake in it. But the point is big fish eat big meals.
Yes, they do.
You know, like an 8-pound Florida strain or F1 tiger bass will eat a 9-inch gizzard shad. It'll eat a 10-inch bass. It'll eat an 11-inch, 12-inch trout. So you're still fishing with big baits post-spawn. Yes. So you're thinking about, if I want to catch big fish, I'm going to feed it a big meal.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of these hardcore swim bait guys, I mean, they go out, they'll throw that swim bait all day long. I mean, they're after one bite. but when they get it, it's a big one.
Yep. So their catch rates may be low, but the reward is huge.
Yes.
So if you know you've got some big fish, you got to think like a big fish and fish for them. All right. Jared, how do they get, if somebody wants to go fishing with you, how do they find you?
I've got a Facebook page. It's Hill Country Hammer Guide Service. On Facebook, we've got a pretty good website, lbjfishing.com. And those are about the best source to get in touch with me.
Excellent. Makes pretty dadgum good breakfast tacos, too. All right. Well, you got any other, let's kind of wrap up, and then we'll get your running buddy over here, Travis, and let him talk about some things he's thinking about. What, any kind of closing tips for somebody that owns a pond that and try to catch big fish?
There's a common misconception that, you don't want to eat bass, you don't want to take bass out of a lake. I mean, sometimes it just depends on the situation, but a lot of times that helps your lake. I mean, if you get overrun in a lake, they're going to only get so big. You've got to harvest some fish here and there too.
Good, and we preach that. I mean, that's something everybody that watches this show knows we preach that. Look at your pond like a garden. You're going to build it, stock it, manage it, feed some fish, love on them a little bit. At some point, you got to harvest it. You're not going to plant 52 rows of tomatoes in the garden and not harvest and eat some tomatoes. You got to do that. And if you'll do that, then you keep the dynamics going such to where you can grow some really, really big fish. Somebody's asking in a minute when we switch gears, if you'll post your info on your guide service, just find Pond Boss Facebook page and put your link on there to your website and your Facebook page.
Awesome.
And then we'll see if we can churn something up.
Awesome.
All right. Hey, Jared, thanks for hanging out, man.
Thanks.
I appreciate it.
Look forward to tomorrow.
All righty. Heck yeah, we're going fishing tomorrow with Jared and Travis. Come here, Travis. Get over here, boy. Here's one of Jared's running buddies, Travis, and they've been fishing today. We're going to ask them what happened because, I mean, these guys are pros. So they've been fishing. And Travis, remind me your last name.
It's Cockrum.
Cockrum, that's right. He told me that last night. And then we had some whiskey. Well, you didn't.
No, I didn't.
No, John Hand and I did. There's John. Yeah, so anyway, you guys fished Alan Henry today,
Yes,
which
sir.
is about 5 miles down the road, hanging out at Woody's Roadhouse and Lodge. It's you can find it on VRBO. It's pretty dadgum cool. And now it's out in the middle of West Texas, but right here by Lake Alan Henry. So you guys, a while ago, Jared was talking about you guys are chasing the bite.
Yes, sir.
So here we are, basically 24 hours post-front. The air temperature went from the 70s to the 30s. The lake temperature dropped how much? Did you guys check it?
2 to 3 degrees. It's down to 57 when we left. It got up to 58. So it's on the way back up. Tomorrow it'll probably get to almost 60.
And what was it before the front?
61.
So it's 61 or 62, which is perfect temperature for bass to come up and be on the beds.
Yes, sir.
So part of our mission, we were going to come up here and fish with these guys and see if we could sight fish a few, but Mother Nature changed our minds on that. So Mark McDonald's hanging out with me. He's back there working on some jalapenos for a little bit of an appetizer when we finish here in a minute. And then John and Mark and I went over to another lake, and you guys today fished Alan Henry to kind of go scope it out and see if you can figure out a pattern, see what the fish have done. And what'd you guys find today?
Man, so we started out dragging a big flat Carolina rig, 10-inch worm, and I think we drug it for 2 hours and ended up having 5 bites. I think 2 of them were spots, and one of them was a pretty good fish that ended up getting us in a tree. So we left there and ended up going to throw to the main lake. We ended up throwing a square bill and a spinner bait, and we probably caught 10 to 15 spots on the square bill. Biggest one being about 2. We did that for 3 or 4 hours, and then we ran up the river to the dirty water. It was a little bit warmer. I think the water there was 58 to 59. Throwing a big single-bladed spinnerbait by Bass Assets, and ended up catching 3 or 4 fish there. I think the biggest one was about 2.5 pounds. So a lot of the bucks have moved up. The females are still kind of hanging back. That frontal knock them back, but they're working their way up right now.
So what that tells us with our ponds and lakes is that they're going to be affected by temperature as well. And just a 2 or 3 degree swing at the wrong time will drive them off the beds. So here we are, 61 degrees 3 days ago. Males were on the beds. Females were moving in, getting ready to do what they do. Then this front swept through, shoved the temperature down, and everybody vacated. So you didn't see any fish on beds today, did you?
We seen one buck on a bed today. Before the front pushed in 2 days ago, we seen one that was between 8 and 10 cruising around trying to move up on a bed, and then we seen another one that could have been 10, could have been 12, that was on a bed, but she wasn't locked. She was moving up, but she'd see the boat, or we'd get close and she'd swim off. So she had just moved up. She wasn't hot.
Okay, all right.
The buck was there, but the buck wasn't aggressive either, so he had just moved up.
All right, so they were just getting things ready to go.
Yes, sir.
Now, one of the big arguments about bed fishing is if you disrupt that bed, does that disrupt the spawn? What's your opinion?
I don't believe so. I mean, as Jared said, the fish, 99% of the time, she'll move off. The buck will go right back. The female, if you catch her, she's going to move off and probably be out there for a day or two, and she'll get back to normal, and she'll move back up. She's still going to spawn, maybe on a different bed, but she's still going to spawn.
Okay, so it really doesn't affect the recruitment of the lake. That's your opinion.
Correct.
Okay. Well, here's mine. Let's do a little math here. If my throat will allow. If one of these 10-pound females lays all of her eggs, and she does it in 2 phases, she's going to lay close to 200,000 eggs. And half of those are males, so there's going to be about 100,000 females out of one female. And she may spawn in 4 or 5 different beds. So how many of those need to survive to replenish the fishery? Now, everybody knows that people aren't going to go out and harvest a whole lot of fish. Now, public lakes, they get a lot of fishing pressure. Some guys will take 4 and 5 pound bass, go move them into their pond. Some folks will go catch a few to eat, although bass really aren't the target for that. So it doesn't take a whole lot of fish to replenish a fishery. So now if you were to catch the buck off the bed, put that fish in the live well, you've messed up that spawn because other fish are going to come in and eat those eggs while he's in your live well. But you guys leave the male alone because you're not targeting him anyway.
That's correct.
So the biologist's opinion is bed fishing does not interfere with actual recruitment of fish for that fishery. All right, let's see here. I see Christopher Aguilar checking in. He's our Boudin man. He knows all about Boudin.
Okay.
And he's a pretty darn good guy, too. Chris Blood, if there was an ideal depth to have your bass spawning beds, what would that be? About how many beds do you see together in a cluster?
Man, it really depends on, there's a couple different factors. So we were at Ivy 2 weeks ago, and we had a 1.5-mile stretch, and I bet there was 150 beds. They didn't all have fish on them, but they had all been made, and most of them had bucks. And then you get here to like Allen Henry that doesn't have the fish population like that. Man, you could see one bed in the cove. You could see 20. It just kind of depends on which part of the lake and the water clarity. As far as depth goes, it's also going to depend on the water clarity and how the lake sets up. The water on Ivy was super clear, but they were spawning on longer flats, so most of the beds were anywhere between 1 foot to 3 foot deep. Here at Allen Henry, you'll see them anywhere from about 3 foot all the way down to 15 to 17 foot if you can see down that far, because this lake's a lot deeper. It's a lot steeper up shallow. A lot of bluff walls and a lot of ledges out deep.
Most ponds, your bass are going to spawn in water 3 to 5 feet deep. But it also depends on water clarity. I mean, I've seen bass spawn in water 12 inches deep, which I don't like that because gray blue herons can pick them off. But 3 to 5 feet deep is pretty typical in smaller bodies of water. But like what Travis is talking about, you know, when you got water clarity so clear like that, they'll spawn in deeper water. What's ideal? 3 to 5 feet. Let's see here. There's Blair Ollering, Chad Gillespie, Mike McPherson in a 0.6 acre pond, 25 feet maximum depth, and lots of habitat. Bottom aeration and feeding Aquamax. What's your opinion of how large a largemouth will get? Will the small pond affect the maximum size? Absolutely will. It takes, in a 1 acre pond, you can grow somewhere to the tune of 50 to 75 pounds of bass. Now, if it's 50 pounds of bass, that could be 10 5-pounders, and that's it. You know, and so in a 6.6 acre pond, I think you can grow bass 6 to 7 pounds, but you're not going to have many of those. You might have 2, and all the rest are going to be 10 to 14 inches long, and maybe 2 or 3 that are 2 to 3 pounds long. Jeremy Poole, what's up, guys? Hope yeah, Jeremy, we are enjoying the pool.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, the lodge, we're enjoying hanging out with these guys. We're getting ready to cook some ribeyes here in a minute. Come join us, dude. Jason Maloney, hashtag Pond Boss Magazine. You know what's time to do a little commercial?
All right.
Here it is, Pond Boss Magazine. Comes out 6 times a year.
Okay.
$35 a year.
That's it, huh?
Cheaper than a Friday night date, and it lasts a year. I'm telling you. You get all kinds of nuggets. The May-June issue just went to the printer today. It'll be in the mailbox by the first of the week next week. I mean, we got Ask the Boss. We've got all kinds of articles coming up. So, $35. Let's go. You guys rock and roll with it. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine in the comments section. Click like, share to your timeline. You're eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat and a Pond Boss mug. Say it with me, Vito. Knows how to keep hot things hot, cold things cold. We don't know how it knows, but it knows. So do that and you're eligible for a drawing. In the Eddings, enjoy your vacation. We're having a pretty good time. Tom Davis from Ohio, Brian Epting, not cooking any bass? Not today. We didn't catch any. Now, they did, but we didn't. We went another direction in another lake and got skunked. If I'd had my sharker boat, we wouldn't have got skunked. So if you were to give, now, of course, this audience are private pond and lake owners. So if you were to give them some tips, like we were talking about a while ago with Jared, on trying to catch a few big bass, he talked about post-spawn. Let's talk about suspended fish in the summer.
All right.
How would you do that? Or would you?
Man, so I'm not too much of an, I guess what you'd say, offshore fisherman or suspended fish fisherman. But if I was going to target them in the summertime, you know, a lot of those suspended fish, they're suspended around bait. So if you can kind of target where the bait's at, you want to throw something obviously that's going to match the bait. A small swim bait's real good, and maybe even a spoon. And if you have trees out there, you could throw a Carolina rig, drag them over top of those trees. You know, they may be suspended over top of the trees, so that may be something else that works real well also. My experience has also been that especially the bigger fish, they'll get down and sit in the thermocline. Mm-hmm. And it's because they're after the best temperature they can get. You know, a lot of times a bass would, matter of fact, every time a bass will choose optimum temperature over optimum oxygen. And when you get in the thermocline, the oxygen plummets. So does the temperature. So as long as they've got enough oxygen that they don't suffocate, that's where they're going to go. So one of the things I like is, and I figured this out on a 125-acre East Texas lake, the thermocline started at 9 feet. And this was a long lake shaped kind of like a lizard. And it ran north and south. It runs north and south. Well, the thermocline sits at 9 feet. But what happens is, it's got a big flat area in the upper end at the confluence of two creeks where there's this sandy flat that's at 9 feet. And they will ball up on that sandy flat in 9 feet of water just because the temperature is 2 or 3 degrees cooler. Right.
You know, maybe a little bit more. And so the only way we were able to catch fish in that lake in the summer was to go find those fish on that flat and then try to get a reaction strike out of them. Because when they're in that thermocline and they're hunkered down in their summer pattern, they're going to eat, but they're not going to all eat at the same time, and you really can't predict when they're going to eat. So that's pretty good. There's Danny Mack checking in from San Antonio. So we got a pretty good audience going on here. If you were going to give tips on a fishing a fall pattern, so now the water's beginning to cool down, ponds and lakes have turned over. Now we're getting into, say, October, and the water temperature's starting to be autonomous top to bottom. Where the bass going to go?
Man, you can catch them really deep. You can catch them shallow up creeks, main lake. What I like to do, I like to throw top water. I like to throw it year round. In the fall, these bass will start chasing larger bait. So I like throwing big spooks or a big whopper plopper, as Jerry said, a big frog. Last year we ended up winning a couple tournaments on Lake Buchanan. The fish were chasing real big gizzard shad, and we ended up throwing an 8-inch spook up top, throwing it all day long.
And you won a tournament on a Zara spook. What time of year?
It was October.
In October.
Fall.
Wow.
Yep, and here in Texas, in the fall, a lot of these fish will start chasing that bigger bait, looking for that bigger meal. And what they're doing is they're feeding up for the wintertime to preserve that energy.
Exactly.
So
exactly. That's exactly right.
Don't be afraid to throw big bait. And, if I have any advice as far as topwater goes, throw it all day long, even if the sun's out and no clouds. That's when I do my best, is between 11 and 3 o'clock in the middle of the day. And a lot of people don't know that, and a lot of people don't do it. But a big topwater all day long may not get a lot of bites, but if you're going to target those bigger fish, it will get you bit.
That's great. I love that. And it's more fun.
Oh, correct. Absolutely.
Because you can watch your bait, and then when that fish blows up on it, here we go.
Yes, sir.
Stephen Martin says, any thoughts on sealing a leak in a pond where they got into a rock about 20 feet by 20 foot, so a 400 square foot area? I used some bentonite board gel. Are the pellets of bentonite better to try and seal the leak up? The pellets are. Now, as long as you know that that's where the leak is, then you stand a pretty good chance of sealing it. Now, I'm going to tell you to go to pondboss.com, click on the resource guide, and look at some of the polymers and compare the polymers also to sodium bentonite. So in the resource guide, there's some good stuff. Also go to pondboss.com, click on Ask the Boss, and do a search on leaky ponds. And you'll get some real good tips so you can get a comparison there. Also on pondboss.com on Ask the Boss, post that, register, it's free. Nobody's going to bother you. You're not going to get emails. Well, you might get one from me every once in a while. But ask that question on that forum, and TJ Hudson will answer and respond. He is our go-to guy on the Pond Boss forum about leaky ponds and polymers and bentonite and that sort of thing. All right, so you know what? With my throat crusty like this, I think we're going to wrap up. If you were going to give any more fishing tips, what do we got here? Woody'sRoadhouse.com. Come around behind here. Oh, get over here. Okay, never mind. Anyway, by the way, let's see here. I want to scroll back up here. Ron McWilliams is checking in, by the way, fellas. Oh, yeah? Got to see Ron McWilliams. He lives up at Ransom Canyon, which is what, an hour and a half from here, maybe? All right, so I want to kind of start trying to wrap things up a little bit. Just some general, let's kind of veer off of the topic of bigger bass. If somebody wants to go take a kid fishing in their pond to catch their first fish or to teach them some of the basics of catching largemouth bass, what would you tell them?
Obviously live bait's always a good thing for kids. It's simple, live bait and a bobber in a pond, or even in a lake. We do a lot of kids trips and a lot of first time trips, and that's how we kind of set up. You throw it out there, let it sit, and if the bobber goes under, set the hook and reel it in. If you're going to fish artificial, I think one of the easiest bites to learn is a weightless Senko. It's something that works year round better. It's got its better and worse times, I guess you could say, in certain times of the year, but year round you can normally catch fish on it. So it's a simple bite, it's weedless, it doesn't get down into the grass or the moss or anything like that. So if I was going to start a kid off, trying to fish a worm bite or something simple, it's definitely what I would start off with is a Senko. It's just easy to fish.
Good tips. We had a couple of questions pop up, so I'm going to tackle those right quick. Robert McDonald, would lily pads in a 2-acre largemouth bass lake work? Uh-oh, it went away. Let me find it. One of our residents thinks it would be a good thing for the bass. I'm concerned about any hidden problems they might cause that we're unaware of. The dumb tax. Good call. Let me answer that. True lily pads, well, fragrant white water lilies and American lotus can be invasive. Once they get established, they'll grow like crazy, and they can take over a lot of shallow water, and they can do it within 2 or 3 years. Now, there's some of the hybrid water lilies that don't grow nearly as fast that you can buy from water garden stores, places like that aren't nearly as invasive. Now, I'm not opposed to having lily pads, but I am opposed to having those that are really invasive. So stay away from fragrant white water lilies and American lotus. Don't plant those. Harrison Davis, when using a top water plug. Now, Harrison works for a pond management company over in Georgia.
Okay.
So he's saying when using a top water plug in the middle of the day, does the water need to be murky or plankton rich, or can you use clear water?
So a lot of the stuff that we fish around the house, like LBJ, Lake Buchanan, they're primarily clear. And they don't have too much grass in it. It's got a lot of stick-ups. Like LBJ, we fish a lot of seawalls, and I'm fishing this thing in anywhere between 3 foot to 6 inches of water on these seawalls, and it's clear water. You can watch the fish come and get it. So it doesn't have to be dirty. It doesn't have to be plankton rich, anything like that. I actually find better when it is clear in the middle of the day and the sun beating down. It casts a shadow, and I think that's the biggest thing is throwing that big bait with that big shadow over top of that fish. A lot of people think it'll intimidate them, but it actually, I think, makes them mad. They don't shy away from it. Your larger fish don't.
They're naturally aggressive. So when something invades their space, they want to go check it out. Where a catfish runs from it, a bass doesn't. A bass goes to it. And so actually clear water is I've had some of my most fun topwater fishing in clear water, especially when you can see the fish coming.
Absolutely.
And you see that fish coming with 2 more right behind it in water 6 feet deep. That's huge fun. And then when you hook that fish and the other ones are trying to beat it off so they can eat your bait, that's big fun. Jason Nebstad says, for kids, go weedless. Yes, that's a good idea.
Correct.
One other tip about topwater baits or fishing in the middle of the day, if your water is murky, remember that bass are primarily sight feeders. But if they can't see so well, they also have a really good, refined way to hear or sense movement with their lateral line. So if you got a bait like a Zara Spook and you're churning that across the water like Charlie Campbell won a Bassmasters Classic back in the early 70s with, and you're making a lot of noise, that's going to attract fish as well.
Correct.
So there you go. There's Chico, Mike Garcia checking in. Josie, thanks for the good wishes. Yep, Vito, whiskey, lemon, and honey. I think I'm fixing to go do that. All right. Hey, guys, listen. Thanks again, Pond Boss. Hey, hey, don't forget, the Bob Lusk Institute of Higher Pondology is live. We got premium content. You can go to the Pond Boss website, find the topic that says Institute, click on that. You're paying for it. But I promise you, you buy that content and you're getting ready to do something with your pond, whether you're going to build one, have better fisheries management, deal with aquatic plants. We will help save you money on the dumb tax. So the dollars you spend on your education with the Institute of Higher Pondology, and you're serious about getting out there and spending some money and time and doing it, is well worth it. So, hey, we appreciate you guys and gals watching, and I'm going to go mix up something, some cough syrup or something, or get somebody to mix it. Then we're going to cook a steak. So thanks for hanging out with us right here at Woody's Roadhouse Lodge.com.
Yes, sir.
Check them out because it really is cool. It's a cool place. They've got 4 bedrooms. Now, there's a master bedroom with a bath The other 3 bedrooms share a bath. So it's a good. This is a great place for a girls' trip, if you want to go fishing, especially at Lake Allen Henry, or a guy's trip, or like 3 or 4 couples that don't mind sharing a bathroom. You know, full kitchen. It's a pretty cool place, and the rates are reasonable too.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we're going to check out, sign off. Once again, thanks. Much appreciate you guys watching this show every Wednesday, and look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. I think next Wednesday I'll be at the RV. So for now, adios.